Nvidia and AMD can ship back to China now. Apple is gonna run Cyberpunk this week, and Nvidia CPUs, they're delayed. AMD can breathe a breath of fresh air this year. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're gonna be going over the hottest tech news I can find on the internet while you enjoy your breakfast. This Wednesday, July 16th, 2025. We're gonna start off today talking about a nice little reprieve for the $4 trillion company, Nvidia, getting information that they are now allowed to sell their H20 GPUs back in China. They are allowed to export them, with the US government assuring them that the licenses will be granted. Nvidia hopes to start deliveries soon. This is a massive gain for the company, who has had to slow down some exports of their graphics cards. It's not quite clear at the time of filming why this is changing, but it's not just Nvidia who's impacted by this. AMD also announcing that their MI308 GPUs are going to also be lifted and allowed to be exported to China. So both GPU companies getting some reprieve in terms of restrictions that they had on selling their GPUs outside of the United States. And Nvidia is also looking on not just selling the H20, but also an RTX 6000D for the Chinese market as well. And on news of this, Nvidia's stock price went up considerable amount, going up to $4.17 trillion. Very, very wealthy company indeed. But in case you have a PC that maybe isn't located anywhere near you, like potentially these Chinese PCs, or running a part of your business in South Africa, you should definitely check out today's video sponsor. Remote viewing? Is that when you just take a good hard look at the TV remote? Please laugh. Well, anyway, today's sponsor, AnyDesk, is all about remote viewing, specifically the remote desktop kind. AnyDesk is all about bringing the benefits of using a remote desktop to regular users. Now, if you're still an IT fella or a big old company, AnyDesk offers scalable and custom plans to ensure your needs are met. But if you're just a regular guy like Kyler here, you can use AnyDesk free for personal use. Being able to access your main PC from anywhere is something that makes travel so much less stressful. Imagine you leave for a business trip, and in the airport you remember you left the files for the most important presentation your boss has been on you about. Scary, right? Well, AnyDesk would let you simply remote into your home PC and upload them to whatever cloud drive you prefer. Or maybe you're a video editor with a beast of a PC, but your laptop is a little lacking. And man, does an editing rig get hot on a summer day. With AnyDesk, you can leave the 100-degree editing dungeon and edit from your laptop on your PC, thanks to the solid audio pass-through and lightning-fast connection. AnyDesk itself is super duper lightweight and focused on maintaining your privacy. They even offer support for legacy systems like Windows XP, in addition to all modern systems such as Windows, Mac, Linux, and mobile OSs. View your PC differently. Get it? View? Because it's remote view? Okay, how about you just check out AnyDesk right now via the link in the description below. Thanks to AnyDesk for sponsoring. Well, you may also want to use AnyDesk to remote into your Intel PC if you live in a hot environment. Put your PC in a cold environment and remote into it with AnyDesk, and load up Firefox, making sure that your PC is cool, because that is the report that is coming out from a Firefox dev, that the Raptor Lake chips that were known for having instability issues are still having that, and they're able to track where heat waves are happening because of the amount of reports of crashes that are coming in from Raptor Lake chips. And in fact, they had to disable a bot that was automatically sending crash reports on Raptor Lake PCs because it was just overwhelming them. It looks like either not enough people fixed their Raptor Lake chips with the BIOS updates that were rolled out by Intel, which admittedly is not going to be an easy solution for the non-tech savvy person, or there might be further issues that Intel hasn't fully fixed yet. I would tend to believe it's the former rather than the latter, but finding out that Intel Raptor Lake 13th and 14th gen are struggling to run a web browser is, wow. I guess that's why they call it Firefox, huh? All right, ignoring that, let's go ahead and not ignore Macs for gaming, because as of tomorrow, Cyberpunk 2077 will become playable on Mac Apple Silicon Macs. It has been playable. We've already done reviews with previous, like the Mac Studios. We tested those out for gaming. You can check out that video right up there. It wasn't very good, but now they will be running natively on Apple Silicon, with the announcement coming out that they will be working on any Apple Silicon device that has at least 16 gigabytes of RAM. So that essentially excludes base level MacBook Airs before the M4. But not just that, Cyberpunk will also have exclusive graphic presets for each version of the Mac that you have, whether that's the M4 Max or the M2 Pro. It will have its own setting dedicated to your specific version of your computer. Additionally, it'll support the Magic Mouse, Magic Trackpad, as well as spatial audio using things like AirPods, and it's going to take advantage of Apple's Metal 4 capabilities such as FXD noising as well as FX frame interpolation. And it's going to be launching not just on the Mac App Store, but also on GOG, Steam, and Epic Game Store, being supported on Apple for all of that. It's a big step forward for Apple gaming. It's the last major release that's kind of on their announcement titles. They had like a whole bunch of games that they said were coming out. Cyberpunk's kind of the last AAA title that's a big deal for them. I wonder if they'll have more announcements with the launch of the M5 maybe later this year, but I'm keen to at least try it out later this week. And it turns out that today, CD Projekt Red will have an announcement regarding various things that are happening in the latest patch for Cyberpunk 2077. It looks like it's not just stuff that's coming out for Mac, but there might also be some big details coming out for the rest of the people playing those games. I know Reece is going to be excited for that. He loves Cyberpunk. He was talking on stream about playing it again sometime soon, but hopefully right now he can talk to you about saving money.
Yo, welcome back to UFD Deals, bringing the hottest tech deals out on the internet. I'll jump straight into them for you today. Starting off, we have this Puma Playseat gaming chair for only $59.99, making it $110 off. I've always been curious about these, but not curious enough to pay the full price, but at $60, you know, you can get in peak gamer lean position with these. But then next up, we have the EpoMaker Dynatab 75X wireless hard swappable mechanical keyboard for only $69.99, making it $70 or 50% off, whichever you like the sound of more. And then lastly, we have this AOC Aegon Pro 27-inch 1440p 240Hz QD OLED gaming monitor, going for only $484.49, making it $85.50 off. And hey, with that, the deals are done. You can find these and more linked in the video description down below. But until next time, hand you back to Brett for the rest of your hot news. Cheers.
Well, Reece, you're gonna have to save me another $450 in case my Switch 2 gets banned, because it turns out that's happening a lot more frequently now, with a well-known tech YouTuber getting their Switch 2 banned because they bought a used video game. This is something that we haven't really fully reported here on Hot News, but I've just been keeping aware of the entire situation. Essentially, it comes down to game cartridge dumping that's been happening with MIG Switch flash carts, which is something that was invented for the Switch 1 that allowed you to dump your own games and run them off of a single cart and take it with you wherever you go. Nintendo didn't like that, so they made it so that on the Switch 2 they have a way of detecting that, and they're banning consoles that either use the MIG switch or dump their games to the MIG switch. And that is exactly what is happening with used games being picked up. If those have been dumped onto a MIG switch, then you are at risk of having your Switch 2 being banned, just like Quinn Nelson from Snazzy Labs reportedly got their Bayonetta 3 copy on eBay, and that locked out their Switch 2 from being able to use online services on their console. Now, this isn't the first time this is being reported. There have been other instances where this has happened, but it looks like this is becoming more widespread, and it does get resolved allegedly fairly easily. If you contact Nintendo support, they will unlock the console for you, but it is a danger that is now happening in the used game market that wasn't there previously. Nintendo cracking down in a way that wasn't there before. However, not everybody is agreeing that the reason Snazzy Labs got banned was because of this Bayonetta 3. There was a post that he made earlier that showed that he was using a MIG flash on his Switch 2. Whether or not it's the same one or the same account, I know that tech tubers can have various different accounts for various different things, and maybe he separated them for that reason, a personal and a work Switch 2. But regardless, he's not the only person to get banned for running used games that have been dumped previously, even though it wasn't them who did the dumping. And it looks like Nvidia is dumping the release date for their N1X processors that were supposed to come out to laptops later this year. We're expecting them to compete with things like the Strix Halo AI Max 395 Plus, or whatever the heck it was called. Based on leaked benchmarks that we saw, it looked to be very competitive in terms of CPU performance. It looked like it was going to be a healthy competitor in the CPU department, and then in the GPU department, Nvidia is known for producing some pretty good stuff, but allegedly they're struggling to hit the release date this year, and there are some flaws that are happening in the initial validation that need to be rectified, and so they're going to have to push the launch back to sometime early next year instead of launching this year. So in case you were looking at picking up an ARM version of Nvidia's laptops, you're going to have to save for a little while longer. And I'm not going to wait a little while longer to see what you had to say in yesterday's episode of Hot News. We got Lord of Hell saying, don't forget that Euro price has all the taxes baked in, while the US one won't. You're never actually paying that $899, while in Europe they're paying exactly €899 in total. It usually works out once you take that into account. Yeah, that's a valid point. It's still cheaper in the US, even with tax taken into account, except for in like maybe the worst like counties where they might have excessive tax burdens on top of just what the states have. But usually it still comes out a little cheaper on the US side, even if the dollar versus euro amount is theoretically the same actual numerical value. And then Jonathan saying, my C64 was my first PC. I'd sit for hours plugging in code from Run Magazine to play a game for a few minutes, then power it off and lose all the code because we couldn't afford the 1541 disk drive. Good times. That sounds like it. And Robert saying the Commodore 64 was my introduction to computers and gaming. It had one of the first GUI and in its time was supreme in gaming. Many of the games were free, but you either had to download them through a bulletin board or enter the code yourself. Good times, not to mention chat and boards. And then Slane saying a Commodore 64 was our first computer. My dad had the magic floppy drive and dot matrix printer that took the paper with the little holes you'd rip off when you were done printing. I remember sitting down next to my older brother and watching him play G.I. Joe and Ghostbusters. Then in the early 90s, we got our first PC tower that eventually replaced the C64. Seems like a lot of you have fond memories of the Commodore 64. The only relation I could have is like I didn't have memory cards for my PlayStation 1, so whatever game I was playing, I either had to leave the console on or just kind of get really good at the early parts of video games. Or one time I got towards the end of Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back, and then I left it on, and then I think one of my parents accidentally or intentionally turned it off. They didn't know that I was trying to hold my spot in order to beat the game, and then I gave up and never went back to it. And the Poe is Pro saying, imagine a PCIe slot instead of two M.2 slots. Thinking face. Those are PCI Express slots. You can get adapters and it'll work just the same. It's the same idea. Physically, like slot wise, having a slot on the back of it wouldn't, like you wouldn't be able to actually fit things properly. It'd be very weird. You'd be better off using an M.2 to PCI Express adapter, but that's effectively what those are. They're just giving you access to the back 8 PCI Express lanes on the full slot that the GPU is not utilizing, which, I mean, you can then utilize it to your heart's content in case you want to do multiple GPUs if you want. Who knows? Have fun with that. And I'll have fun elsewhere. I'll be done with this episode of Hot News. See you back here for more of that tomorrow, hopefully.